Welcome to the ExPack podcast, your source for news regarding video games, esports, and everything media. Now, here are your hosts, Jacob and Dalton. What is up, people of the internet? It is that time again for another ExPack podcast. We missed a week. I was sick. I had the flu for for pretty much a solid week, and then after the flu went away, I had migraines over and over, so it was super fun. My glasses are like really crooked and it's bothering me. But we're back now, and this is episode 8. Wait, I can check. I think it's 8.
I think it's
That's what happens when we don't. It's 8. It's 9. Dang it. Alright, episode 9 of the ExPack podcast. I'm Jacob, and this is...
Dalton. I'm Dalton. Hi.
And that's Baird. He's our weekly special guest. He sometimes makes an appearance.
Special.
Something. All right, so let's just get right into it. Since we did not record last week, we did not get to talk about I Am Katowice or Katowice. I don't know how you actually pronounce it. I'm pretty sure it's like Katowice. But anyways, and yeah, that was a pretty exciting tournament for both the Counter-Strike and League of Legends. But I just want to talk about the Counter-Strike side first. So in Group A, we had... Who was it that made it out? Well, now it's being weird. I have an app, but it's not. So in Group A, there was Mouse Esports, Ninjas in Pajamas, Fnatic, Na'Vi, Luminosity, the Mongols, and I think that's it. Yep. And then, so we had a lot of fairly close ones, and then some like just stomps. So Fnatic and Luminosity had a really close match where Luminosity ended up winning. Fnatic and Ninjas had a really close match that ended up being Fnatic. And Na'Vi and Ninjas also had a really close one. And Fnatic and Mouse also had a 19-17, which I think was that was the only overtime of Group A. And then in Group B, we had eFrag.net Esports Club. We had FaZe, Envious, Astralis, I don't even know how to pronounce it. Astralis, yeah. Virtus Pro and Tempo Storm. And there was a few close ones. I'm actually not even sure who's on eFrag.
I have no idea.
This is the first time I've actually even looked at them. But they actually had some close matches. They had a really close one with Envious, which isn't necessarily as impressive as it used to be, just considering their recent play. But Astralis did really well. And then so going into the the Friday matches, we had Tempo Storm versus Na'Vi, which Na'Vi took 2-1, and then we had Fnatic versus VP, and Fnatic just like went ham and took both maps. First one 16-5, second one 16-8, so that was pretty good showing by them. And then from there we had the semifinals with Luminosity versus Na'Vi, and Luminosity took both maps. The first map was in overtime. And then we had Fnatic and Astralis. Fnatic won 2-1. And then the finals was down to LG and Fnatic is a best of 5, and Fnatic just took 3-0. So basically coming out of this tournament, Fnatic is, as usual, looking incredibly strong. And they're definitely going to be the ones to watch coming up in the MLG Columbus Major, which we'll talk a little bit about later. But I think the most disappointing is Virtus. You kind of expect a lot from Virtus at this point, and they just haven't been performing very well at all. Um, and then I guess the Ninjas are kind of, I don't know, like they were really good for a while, but they've been struggling too. And I'm pretty happy with Astralis' performance, considering they made it straight into the semifinals, and they did take a map off Fnatic, which is good, and they made it pretty close. So yeah, that's what happened in Counter Strike during Katowice. What do you think
Yeah,
about that?
I feel like Counter Strike's kind of hard to predict, coming from from the LCS, which is what we mostly follow.
Right.
But I feel like since Go has gotten as competitive, when it started out, it's always been like Fnatic, Ninjas, and then Dignitas was up there, and then they fell off, and now it's like Virtus Pro kind of on and off.
Yeah.
Like, to me, that's what it seems like. I always expect Fnatic to do okay, and every other team just feels like a coin toss. It's kind of weird.
Because you have
But, I
teams
mean-
like Liquid or Cloud9 that can do really well, and then
Yeah, then they just
all of a sudden it's like, what?
I never know how to, like, I kind of follow it enough to where I know, what tournaments are going on, what teams are playing and everything, but when it comes to like trying to predict, like we could in League or something, who's going to win a game or whatever, then I just don't even bother, because I can never correctly guess who's going to win a game.
Yeah. There's usually like some teams that that
It,
pretty
like-
much do well in every tournament, like Fnatic, that you can
Right.
expect that. But a lot of the time, because of so many variables that they have and stuff like that, so it's kind of
Yeah, but I mean, even
definitely different.
I don't even remember which tournament it was, but like Ninjas in Pajamas just decided to show up, like just completely destroyed everybody, and then
Yeah.
they just fell off again.
Yeah.
So it's just, but I guess that I kind of like that though. I feel like it gives a little more excitement at least than than Immortals
Right.
just destroying everybody
Right.
all the time.
Yeah.
So
Yep. So speaking of League, they also had the League of Legends AM tournament. And in Group A we had Ever, which I think we talked about the teams going into it the week before.
yeah,
But Ever, TSM, Origin, and Royal. And I was okay. So first of all, first game, the weirdest throw I've ever seen in my life. Of course, coming from TSM, losing to Ever, which is actually a challenger Korean team. But I mean, still, it's a Korean team. Challenger Korean teams are probably better than most LCS teams. But so they lost that game, and then Royal went and beat Origin and Ever, just both games in a row. And then so TSM had to basically fight their way out of the group, and they beat Origin 2-1, and then they beat Ever 2-0. So they actually ended up doing pretty well coming out of the group stage. And so TSM and Royal made it out of Group A. And then in Group B we had SKT, CLG, Fnatic, and the Quaigo Reapers. And SKT, big surprise, beat both CLG and Quaigo. And then Quaigo actually beat Fnatic, but Fnatic ended up going 2-1 versus both CLG and the Reapers. So kind of, I don't know about surprising, but kind of interesting to see out of Fnatic, because they've been one of the teams in the EU that's just been kind of up and down and haven't really found their swing yet. So it was kind of cool to see them come out and kind of perform in IEM. And then so coming out of that, so we had Fnatic and SKT come out of the group stage for Group B. And then in the semifinals, we had, unfortunately, TSM had to go against SKT and got 2-0'd. And then, which actually the first game was really, really close
Yeah, it wasn't
for a good amount of time. And then it was not so much. And then Fnatic did beat Royal 2-1. So again, Fnatic kind of showing up and showing that they can be a little bit more consistent going through this tournament. And then the finals, SKT 3-0 over Fnatic. So SKT did not lose a single game during this tournament. Granted, it was a pretty small tournament, but still, they definitely were showing that they're still a strong team at the international level, because they haven't necessarily been performing as well in their split over in Korea. And like, I think they're like second or third place. So yeah. Overall, pretty exciting, but
was that last year that they were like they performed pretty? Wait, no.
Are you thinking about season 4, where they didn't lose? They didn't lose an entire game, the entire basically year.
No. I'm talking about the year that they did poorly. They had a year that they didn't really.
Last year.
It was last year.
Yeah, it was kind of. They didn't even go to. Was it last year? One of the years they didn't even make it to finals.
Right.
Or they didn't even make it to Worlds. I can't. Was that must have been the year that Samsung Galaxy won?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So I don't remember which finals that was, but yeah. So yeah. That was it for Katowice. It was a pretty cool tournament. And then this last weekend happened for the LCS. Let's just, because I didn't watch any of the matches this weekend. It was just,
it was upset after upset after.
But
upset.
I would like to talk about the standings and the playoffs and stuff like that. Can you not right now? And so in the NA we have Immortals still at 15-1. They went 2-0 again this weekend. And then we have CLG and Cloud9 both at 11-5. TSM at 9-7. They did drop a game this weekend to Renegades, which was probably the biggest, I don't even know, thing that happened. And then we have Energy and Liquid both at 8-8. And then we have Echo Fox at 6-10. So they've been kind of finding their swing again. And then we have TIP at 5-11, Dig at 4-12, and Renegades at 3-13. So yeah, the top spots are still pretty much what we would expect. TSM did, I believe, clinch their playoff spot this weekend, even though they dropped a game. So yeah, I mean, both CLG and Cloud9 looking really solid. Coming into it's the last week this weekend, isn't it?
Yep.
Yeah. So they're gonna be looking to win their last week and see what happens, and yeah.
CLG.
I'm trying to remember who plays who this weekend though.
This weekend or last?
This weekend, the ninth week. So TSM plays Immortals and Energy. So they should win the Energy game, you would think. CLG plays Energy and Dignitas. They will probably go 2-0, if I'm being honest. Cloud9 plays Echo Fox and Liquid. So they should go 2-0. And those are the top 4 teams. So yeah.
I predict a 2-0 on CLG. 2-0 Immortals. And I bet Cloud9 drops the game against Liquid.
Think so? I could see that happening. Liquid's kind of been up and down, but they could definitely show up. I think probably the weirdest one is Energy, because we definitely expected them to be up higher right now. But
that was kind of weird, though. They came out swinging, and then they kind of settled down, but they were still winning, and then it was a fizzle. It was like a really slow fizzle.
Yeah.
I was super interested to see where they were going, and then I started watching LCS the next week, and I was just like, well, they're going nowhere. Okay.
Yeah, it was interesting. They came out strong, and then, well, I guess kind of dependent on what teams they play. So they're a lot like Liquid. Like, they can definitely win convincingly against the bottom teams, but then they struggle when it comes to the top tier teams. So As far as playoffs go, obviously Immortals are in, um, and then CLG and Cloud9 are fighting for the other bye in the playoff round, and then wow, excuse me, and then we have TSM at 9-7. Um, but then they could also kind of be playing for the playoff spot if they 2-0 this weekend and CLG goes 0-2, but I don't really think that's going to happen. Echo Fox could actually still make it into the playoffs, but they would have to beat Cloud9 and Renegades. And then they would also need Liquid Energy to win or to lose both their games. So the top, obviously, like, so Immortals, CLG, and Cloud9 are all, and TSM are all in the playoffs at least. But then in between there, like, if weird things not necessarily that weird, but if things go down the right way, like Echo Fox could still make it into the playoffs and all that. So yeah.
I'd really like to see them in the playoffs, to be honest.
Yeah.
I like them as a team. It sucks that they had to deal with so much, mid-season. But it was Froggen that had visa.
Yeah,
problems,
Froggen wasn't able to play for most of it.
Somebody else too, but anyway, I like their roster. I think they need a lot of work, but it's like the potential is there, and that's what makes them so fun to watch.
Yeah.
Um,
And we'll talk about Froggen later, but
I think the team I just honestly could care less about this season is just Impulse. They just, even when they win, it's just kind of meh.
Yeah. I feel like they had a few really good games, and then, like, it was just, I don't know. They're just not that fun to watch. I don't know.
With their old roster, because they were so ham all the time, it's like they had an identity at least, and this roster just, it doesn't really feel like they do.
Yeah.
They're just kind of there.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, so we'll see what happens this weekend, and as far as playoffs go, and going into that, who has the buys and stuff like that. But over on the other side of the ocean, in the EU, we have tied for first place. We have both G2 and H2K at 13-3, and then we have Vitality at 12-4. Then we have Origin and Fnatic and Unicorns of Love all at 9-7. And then we have Elements and Splice at 5-11, Rockat at 3-13, and Giants at 2-14. So G2 and H2K still holding their top spots. Vitality coming in really strong in these last few weeks. We weren't really sure about them midway through, but they've definitely been showing that they are a top team. And then Origin, Fnatic, and Unicorns all kind of struggling from their inconsistency, mostly from individual play, I feel like.
Yep.
So
that's what's kind of weird to me watching EU, is because the games are stretched out so much longer, I feel like. I don't even know if that's true, really. Are they that much longer? They feel like it.
No, I think it depends. I think some of them are. I think probably the average is, yeah.
I think it's their lane swapping, because it's so much bigger in EU right now. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know if you watched last weekend, but like every game was some sort of different play on lane swapping and picking up Herald a lot, the Rift Herald a lot, and it just makes the whole like first half of the game just seem so boring, for lack of a better word, even though it is interesting, the details of it, and then it just explodes. And it's like, with this meta, it can go either way, so those little misplays end up just costing the whole game. And for like Origin's case, I feel like it's a lot of SOAS just getting caught in top when it's kind of a tank meta, so if your tank's gone, like, you're kind of screwed.
Yeah.
And just little things like that. So EU's kind of been interesting in some ways, but at the same time, it's just kind of weird. They have kind of a different meta right now.
Yeah. But as far as their playoffs go, so G2, H2K, and Vitality are, and actually, so it's kind of weird right now because those top three are obviously all in the playoffs. They're all still fighting for first place and obviously second place. And then what was the other? So H2K and G2 have harder weekends this weekend than Vitality, so Vitality still could probably take first place. And then let's see. So Giants have already condemned to relegation, which is unfortunate. And then Rockhat would need to win both games and then have Elements and Splice lose so that they would be at the same standings as them, and then they would have to fight basically to see who would go into relegation. So it'd be interesting. So yeah, and then, so again, we're gonna have to kind of see what happens this weekend with those top teams to see who gets the buys, because it's not like Immortals; they've already like secured their buy. So the EU has a lot of closer teams, so top 6 are all pretty close. So yeah, so that's what's happening in the LCS as far as standings and stuff like that. We did have a fun thing this weekend. I would say fun, but interesting. I don't know. The world record for the creep kills in an LCS game was broken technically twice. Because the former CS record was 726 from Coco, who when he was on, or no, I'm sorry, when he was on CJ Antis, and then so Keith actually got 738 CS, which was more, but his teammate Froggen got 764, and they ended up winning that game, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. It was against Dig. That's right. So yeah, it was kind of. I mean, it was one of those games that's kind of like, all right, like what's happening, kind of thing. But the ending was pretty exciting. I did watch that. So
the whole last 25 minutes was actually really fun to watch, but it was fun to watch for all the wrong reasons. I mean, it was a terribly played game on both sides, but it was still. It was a lot of fun. I think because anybody that plays League and plays solo queue has had those games, and to see that, like pro players like getting that emotional about a game and stuff and getting that hyped up and having that much, well, I don't know if I would say fun, but trying that hard.
Yeah.
It was fun to watch, and yeah, it was just really sloppy though. I mean, Dignitas had that game for so long.
Yeah, because Dignitas got 4 Barons, and then they had the 5th Dragon buff 3 times in a row, and then they still lost. So that's impressive. So yeah, that was kind of a fun happenstance this weekend as far as League goes. And then back to Counter-Strike, we have the groups for the first $1 million major for Counter-Strike, and that's going to be at MLG Columbus. And so let's see. In Group A, we have Luminosity, Ninjas in Pajamas, Mouse, and Flipside. In Group B, we have Fnatic, Splice, Liquid, and FaZe. And then Group C, we have Envious, Astralis, CLG, and Gambit. And then the Group of Death, as it's being called, Group D, which is going to be Navi, G2, Virtus, and Cloud9. So we have a pretty good mix. I think probably coming out, probably expecting Luminosity to take Group A as far as like coming out of it first place. Luminosity for Group A, probably Fnatic Group B. I would say Astralis for Group C, and then probably Navi for Group D.
Yeah, I would say.
But I feel like, I don't know.
That one could go multiple ways, but I think
Yeah, I think that G2 could take it. I think Cloud9 could take it. Honestly, like I'm not really. I don't have much confidence in Virtus, to be honest, but
no, not right
that should
now.
be interesting. But yeah, that starts in 2 weeks. It's on the 29th. So that'll be kind of cool to watch. This is because it's a bigger tournament, and it is the first $1 million tournament, which is really cool for Counter Strike. So yeah, we'll be keeping an eye out for that in the next couple weeks. I think that's about it for esports. So going into just some general news, AMD did announce what am I trying to say? Which is I can't even think of the word. Anyways, what is being called the most powerful graphics card in the world. So it's called the Radeon Pro Duo. It has 16 teraflops of computing performance. So basically, it's basically two cards in one without like running an SLI or anything like that. It has two Fury X class graphics card, which is like their top cards basically, and they're running them just side by side, and it's freaking gorgeous. And basically what a lot of what they did for this was they went to like VR developers and stuff like that, and said, hey, like what would be the key for making this be able to run VR flawlessly, but then also be the kind of milestone for the next generation of gaming. So that's what they came up with this basically, and it should be coming out this summer ish, and it's going to be around $1,500. So definitely not cheap at all. But I mean, you are basically getting two cards. So yeah.
Can that be crossfired?
I don't know. I don't. Would you really need to?
Well, you wouldn't, but I'm just saying.
I actually do not know. That would definitely be interesting.
You would need the power supply would have to be. That's insane. I mean, just.
I think I remember reading that it has a 6-pin. Yeah, it has a 6-pin power connector, which is the same thing that you would use for your motherboard. Instead of most right now are 4-pin. So that in itself should probably tell you the amount of power that is needed to put through it. But yeah, so this is like basically we're getting to the next stage of GPUs, and it's scary.
Well, it's yeah, to me it's scary because it's coming out so soon, but at the same time, like that'll it'll take another, what do you think, year before it would be considered like viable for most PC gamers to pick up.
Yeah, well, but here's what I'm wondering. I'm wondering if this is gonna be the new standard, as far as running basically two GPUs in one video card.
It just seems kind of. It's just kind of odd to me because it's like they just randomly decided, hey, what if we put two in one? Like that seems like,
so
why didn't we maybe do that earlier?
My thing is this more effective than just having two video cards, right? So I don't know, because you can probably get two, say the 980 Ti is probably like one of the top right now. Like you could probably get I wonder, actually, let me look it up.
It just seems it's just funny to me that it's like the next step is just
stick two together.
Yeah. Like
yeah, so the GTX 980 Ti is pretty much like the top card right now, and you can get that for like 600, 650. So you could get two of those for less than this card. So would that be more effective than just buying this card? But I mean, I guess that it takes away the hassle of having to
Yeah,
then. But yeah, I don't know.
but I
It's
mean,
interesting.
and that SLI support and stuff like that can be just a hassle in general anyway. So I can understand that side of it. It's just
Right.
plug it in and it's just as powerful. But yeah, it's just an interesting evolution. The other thing I was thinking is like you have all this GPU power, but how much of that, if they're talking about, to make it for VR, wouldn't you have to have a pretty powerful processor too to make it even worth? I
Yeah.
mean,
I mean, yeah. You would think so. Um, I would think that. See, I don't know. I haven't. I guess I haven't really looked at what kind of VR requirements are there for CPUs and stuff like that.
yeah,
Um, but it seems like probably most of the VR stuff is going to be okay on like this probably generation of mid to high
mm,
CPUs. Um, but at the same time, they're like if they're literally developing things to push the mark of VR, like that Assassin's Creed VR experience thing that they're talking about, being like achievement for graphical whatever, I don't even know, some crazy thing that they're trying to go for. So we could be seeing things like that where it's gonna really push the limit on hardware,
yeah.
and hopefully not melt computers, but who knows.
Well, and at the same time, they kind of need to. I mean, you're
Yeah.
never gonna have any progress if you don't try, right?
Yeah, that's very true. So, but yeah, so that's well, I guess we'll have to keep an eye out for trends as far as dual GPUs go, and see if that's maybe something that we'll be seeing more of or anything like that. So, yeah.
If we follow how most GPU trends have gone for a long time, a month or two before this card comes out, Nvidia's gonna be like, "Oh, look, here's ours,"
Yeah.
and it's gonna be, you know, a smidge more powerful.
Yeah.
But
So,
we'll see.
yeah. So as far as games go, so EverQuest Next was the next big thing from Daybreak, uh, and they canceled it.
Yeah, I'm kind of sad about
Um,
that.
yeah, so this was actually something that was pretty uh, like interesting and kind of cool, but apparently like it just wasn't fun enough. Like it wasn't gonna be enough to really probably draw the crowd that they wanted, and I think it's just the way MMOs now, like they have to be really specifically what a big player base wants out of an MMO
Right.
to make it successful. And EverQuest Next had some cool things, um, and I remember watching some videos on it and everything like that. But it just, I don't know. Like I guess the people that were playing it just wasn't enough to really move on with it. So yeah, they've canceled the development on it, and they're hoping to probably work on something new. Maybe along the lines of an MMO. Who knows? I would think so. But yeah.
What I kind of figured happened with that game is maybe they tried to, from what we saw, which was very little, but videos of what the game was about, I felt like maybe they tried to pack too many new things into one game,
Hmm.
and it may have made it kind of convoluted. Of course, that's all I'm just guessing, but
Yeah.
it had all of that like world shaping and all this other stuff. And for an MMO, I feel like kind of what you were saying, it kind of has to have a target audience. Like we see it a lot with MMOs that come out. It kind of has to have like a focus. Like when Blade and Soul came out, it was PvP focused. Like the PvE in that game is nothing special really at all. But it just feels good, and it has a good, you know, it feels good for PvP. And I think
Yeah.
that's kind of their thing. And maybe for what they were trying to do with Next, it was just spread out too much.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. And I think that's it. Is like the intentionality behind the audience. Like, even with, you see like Black Desert Online and stuff like that, like they know what they're making this game for, and they know what kind of audience they're gonna pull, and they're gonna target those people, and those are the kind of people that are gonna be drawn to that game. Um, but you see it with MMOs, like you can even see it with like the legitimate WoW clones that
Mm.
we've seen. Like, they know what kind of people they're targeting. They're targeting ex WoW players, but they're going to make it free, or they're going to do one new thing that maybe enough people have voiced their opinion about that would then make them go to that game.
Right.
And I mean, apparently I feel like maybe it just didn't have quite an identity. I mean, there's so many games that are like that now, where you can build and you can do all this stuff. They're all over Steam and stuff like that. That are the MMO style still, and somehow those games survive. But it's because it's not on such an extreme scale and such an extreme, probably I would say, investment for the developer, that they're still able to make money off of it. So yeah.
Yeah.
So that'll
Those
be
are weird, man.
yeah. It's and we just keep seeing things change, and people come up with things, and people not come up with things, but find new ways to reuse elements of MMOs that just, I don't know, like, I don't know, it's just really interesting. And with expansions and things like that, like Blade and Soul just announced their expansion, and so we'll kind of have to see how that game goes, because I haven't been playing it as much lately, just because Path of Exile has consumed my entire life right now. It's been crazy. But so yeah, I mean, we'll just have to see, I guess, if we can expect anything else from Daybreak. I mean, I'm sure that they are going to be working on something, but as far as EverQuest goes, like that series, because they've basically been working on EverQuest for, as far as the series goes, for like 20 plus years. And obviously it's a series that they care about, and there is a fan base for it. So we'll see how that continues or it doesn't continue. And then on the Blizzard side of things, Hearthstone did just announce, well, not just, but like 5 days ago, officially announced their next expansion, and it's called Whispers of the Old Gods. And it's kind of a cool expansion. This one's more interesting to me than probably, well, I can't even remember the name of the last one. But yeah, so it'll be a full expansion with 134 new cards. And basically it's going to be going off of some of the old Warcraft lore with Cthulhu, Isarge, Yogg-Saron, and N'Zoth. And it should be in April or May this year that it's coming out. And it's going to be like the Grand Tournament, where you can pre-order to get a 50 card pack. And then you also get a card back, which is themed after the Cthulhu. But it has some really cool mechanics with Cthulhu still being in your deck, and then able to basically buff that card with other cards, even though you haven't drawn it yet, which I think is kind of a cool thing. Kind of scary, but it's what else is coming with this expansion, or with the launch of it. It's going to have the standard and wild game modes, which we talked about a little bit, with so I guess there will be special quests that when it launches, that if you play standard mode, you can win card packs from the old gods, which is kind of cool. So standard is basically going to be, shoot, I hope I don't get this wrong, because I can't remember which one's which. But standard is going to be where it uses the default cards and then the newest expansion, I think, and it'll cycle out old expansions as usable cards, I think. And then wild, I think, is where you can use anything, but I could be wrong, I think. I guess I could probably just look at it. I think they have it right here. Yes. Okay, that's what I thought. I think. I
That's what
don't
you
know.
thought, you
This is
think?
still confusing for me. Um. Okay, but anyways, yeah. So that's when the whole standard and wild thing will start. We'll see how that ends up working out. I think the idea of it is for more balance and it makes sense and um, like coming from Magic and stuff like that.
Yeah.
As far as basically narrowing it down a little bit so that there's not such an insane amount of cards that could be drawn from. So,
Yeah.
and I've been playing Hearthstone a lot more lately, so it's kind of interesting to me. Um, so yeah. Also for Blizzard, the Overwatch release date was officially announced this last week, as well as the next beta, which is another open beta, which will be May 5th through 9th on Xbox One, PlayStation, and PC. And the full release is going to be, where is it? I know May 24th. Sorry. Um, so yeah, that's pretty exciting. Yeah,
Finally get to play, maybe?
yeah. I know we've been waiting to get into the beta every time forever, and it never happens. But that's okay. It'll be really fun to see how that game continues to progress as far as competitive and stuff like that. I read that I think Cloud9 is picking up a team for it, and everything like that. So yeah, it'll be fun.
Yeah, I
Excited for
don't
that.
think they won't have any problems getting a competitive scene going for
No,
that
not
game.
at all. Just hope that Blizzard does it right for this because of the issues that they've had with like WoW. I feel
Yeah.
like they do Hearthstone pretty well though. I haven't really watched much of it, but it seems like they do decent. Um, so we also had some interesting information on Cyberpunk 2077, which is one that we talked about a while back because we were talking about The Witcher, and because it's developed by the same people, CD Projekt Red. Uh, and so basically, they had an interview and they said that Cyberpunk 2077 is gonna be a like basically they're saying that it's a huge game and that it has an even like a far greater magnitude than even the Witcher series, which is pretty insane considering how large the Witcher games are.
Yeah.
So and but it's also really good to see how successful The Witcher 3 was for them, because they have this like even they have said that they have like these huge ambitions for Cyberpunk 2077 and they want it to be an outstanding and they want it to be just this incredible experience of a game. And so that should be really, really cool. And I can't wait to see more about this game. So,
Yeah, I mean, if anybody can pull off a game of that scale, it's them, to be honest. Um, I always thought it was really impressive what they did. You know, the when The Witcher came out and The Witcher 2, it had like a cult following, and then they everything they did with The Witcher 3, you know, it was kind of scary because they were like, oh, it's going to be open world when everybody was going open world, and it was kind of like, oh no, are they going to ruin this? And then they came out with it, and it was amazing.
yeah.
So, you know, out of all the game studios out there right now, I would trust them to handle something like that more
Yeah.
than anybody, I would say.
And they basically said that because of how successful The Witcher 3 was, like they want this like that added to their ambitions for making this even more revolutionary, even more like bigger, even more exciting. Like they just want this to be the next bar to be raised, right? So like Witcher 3 raised this bar, they want to put it up even higher now. So that's really cool and kind of exciting to see people like studios striving for the next big thing. So that'd be cool. And then we had The Division came out it was last Tuesday or something like that. and it is officially like Ubisoft's fastest selling, but also pretty much their best selling game like ever. So they sold more copies in the first 24 hours than any other game in their history. They don't have the official numbers as far as sales, but yeah, they have definitely been pushing this game, and people are definitely going for it, and yeah, it's really exciting to see for them. They've definitely made a solid game. I think the biggest complaint people have had, other than like the typical bugs and balance issues, whatever, because it is an MMO style, was that the Xbox players do get the third DLC. So I think it's 2 free DLCs and then a paid one. And the paid one, Xbox One users are going to get a whole month before PlayStation and PC, which is pretty absurd, to be honest. But at the same time, I don't know. I don't really think it's a huge deal for the average player. But I definitely see how it's a problem for content creators and stuff like that, because Summit's been playing it a lot, and he was talking about how basically by the time he gets to play this expansion, everybody's going to have seen everything. Yeah. So they're not necessarily going to want to watch him play the game, which sucks, because if it's a game he wants to play, then if people aren't coming to watch him play, then he can't stream it. So that's like a issue for him, and probably for other streamers and stuff like that as well. But I think overall the feedback for this game is positive. So
yeah, it'll all depend. The future of this game is all going to depend on how well they handle their future content. Because I mean, that's the other complaint you see a lot about the game is just late game being not as much as people expected, I guess. But
yeah, it's an extremely grindy game. Like it is like in typical MMO fashion. Like if you want to best in slot everything, like it's gonna take a lot of time. So
yeah, and it's just, I think it's a little unfair for people to expect that much as well, just because the scale of the game and how well the production value on it is. I mean, they had to lay the groundwork first, you know.
Yeah.
And it's like that with a lot of MMO style games too. You know, they had to make sure everything was gonna work, and people were gonna like the base game before they, you know, come out with all these expansions and everything. You can't just expect, you know, oh, the game comes out with 20 raids.
Right,
you know?
right.
Like what? That doesn't.
Yeah,
happen.
they have to have room to expand on it, especially considering it's essentially an MMO. So, yeah, if they just kind of released everything that it was, then there would be no reason to continue playing it past, you know, whatever months and even years. So we'll definitely have to see how those expansions and everything works out, and just hope for the best, because Ubisoft finally kind of did something right. So
yeah.
But yeah, so another big kind of acquisition happened this last week. Riot Games did purchase the developer Radiant Entertainments, who was they made the fighting game Rising Thunder, which is a pretty neat little like mech fighting game, and yeah, so I guess that they are going to be probably starting a new game, a new title, for Riot, basically. So they're kind of still their own thing, but they're under Riot. It's kind of weird, the politics of it, but basically they're having them work on a new game for them. So that should be kind of cool to see what they come up with and what their focus is, and because I mean Riot's just continuing to grow and grow and grow, and League of Legends is insane in the numbers and everything like that. So So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of the logical next step is for Riot to take more of a production company style approach to things, because obviously, they still want League to be their main focus because it will be their main income. But
Yeah. So I guess that they are still going to be working on Stonehearth, which is really funny that it's called that. But it's one of the survival type games that's on Steam right now. So they're still going to be working on that, and then they want to bring Rising Thunder out of the alpha test phase and actually make it a probably. I mean, I would guess that it's going to go into beta first and then to full release. But it is going to be a game that they still basically finish, and then they also will be starting on a new game with them. So that should be interesting to see. I feel like most of the, if any, changes to Riot is going to be because of their acquisition by Tencent last year. So that's probably where some of these, I feel like, maybe bigger ambitions are coming from for Riot, as far as not only doing League of Legends. Like, they want to branch out, and I think that's a good idea for them to see what else they can do, I guess, because they definitely seem capable of making successful titles. So
yeah,
that'll be pretty interesting to keep an eye on that, and what they, I guess, I don't know what I would want or expect from them, I would say, as far as a new title, but I guess we can only hope that it's something like fresh, just not something that's just been done, because it would be cool to see them have another successful title under their belt. So
yeah,
yep.
I mean, they have all the stability they could need to with the income they get from League. So
yep. All right, well, I think that's pretty much it for this week. Not a whole ton going on, but we will be paying attention this weekend to the LCS and seeing next week. We can talk about playoffs and what we expect from that. So if you would like to check this out, we do broadcast this live when we record on my Twitch channel, twitch.tv/spiffyish. You can subscribe to the podcast on iTunes as well. Follow us, hit subscribe, all that jazz. Like the video if you're watching on YouTube. That's it.